Hari Om. Welcome to Yoga Vidya Gurukul, YogaPoint, Yoga Certification Board Level 2 course. Today, we will be talking about the special sense organs. The human body has many sensory receptors spread throughout the body. The senses which our body receives can be of two types: general senses like touch, pressure, pain, the sensation of heat and cold, or the sensation of vibrations and stretching. Another type is the special senses, the sense of vision, the sense of hearing and equilibrium, olfaction or smell, taste, and touch. Our body is continuously receiving stimuli, and depending on the source of the stimuli, the receptors in our body can be of three types. They are the extroceptors, or the receptors which receive stimuli from outside the body, the introceptors, or the receptors which receive stimuli from within the body, and the proprioceptors which receive the stimuli for the position of our body in this three-dimensional space. So the special senses in our body are the vision, olfaction, taste, hearing and equilibrium, and lastly, touch. In today's session, we will be focusing on these special senses. Vision. The organ for vision are the eyes or the eyeballs, along with the accessory structures like the lacrimal glands, which secretes tears, eyelids, and the eyelashes for the protection of our eyes, ciliary glands, and the tarsal glands for the lubrication of the eyeballs, and a set of six extrinsic muscles for the movements of the eyeball. In this diagram, you can see the eye and the associated accessory structures. The central black part is the pupil through which the light enters into the eyes, and we can see. Around the pupil is the iris, which can control the amount of light entering into the eyes. It can control the size of our pupil, thereby controlling the amount of light entering in the eyes. Around the iris, the white portion is the sclera, which is not transparent and the light cannot pass through it. And this eyeball is protected by the eyelashes and the eyelids and the eyebrows above it. There are lacrimal glands situated above the eyes which secrete tears. These tears flow down over the surface of the eyeball and keeps it moist. It also helps in removal of microorganisms, keeping away the infections and removing the dust from the eyeballs. These tears, they further flow towards the nostrils, towards the nose by entering into the lacrimal sac and the lacrimal duct. It also helps to keep our nostrils moist. So the excessive tears, they don't flow out of the eyes, but they flow towards the nostrils and entering the lacrimal sac and inside the nostrils. The extrinsic muscles of the eyes, they help in various movements of the eyes. We can move our eyes up and down towards the right and the left, or even we can rotate our eyes. This is all possible because of the six extrinsic eye muscles. The internal structure of the eyes is composed of three layers or three tunics: the external, the middle, and the internal. The external layer is composed of the cornea, which is the transparent part of the eyes, and the non-transparent part, the white colored part of the eyes, called as the sclera. The middle layer has two parts, the anterior and the posterior. The anterior part has the iris, which is a smooth muscle, and it also has the ciliary body, which can control the curvature of the lens in our eyes. The posterior part is the choroid, or it's a dark pigment. The innermost layer of the eye is the retina, which is the sensory region, which is the sensory layer where the images are formed. Additionally to these structures, there are two more structures called as the humor vitreous and the macula lutea, or the yellow spot. This is a section of the internal structure of the eye. So here you can see that the lens, it divides the eye into two parts, the anterior and the posterior. And the curvature of the lens is controlled by the ciliary body. In front of the lens, we can see the iris, which is a smooth muscle, and it can control the amount of light entering into the eye through the pupil. Behind the lens is the posterior segment, or the posterior cavity, containing the liquid, the fluid called as the vitreous humor. The light passes through the pupil, then the lens, then through this liquid, and then the light reaches up to the retina, and the image of the object is formed over the retina. This image is carried to the brain through the optic nerve. The innermost layer is the retina. Now, this is the sensory layer of our eyes. This retina, it also has two parts, the outer pigmented epithelial cell layer and the internal layer, which is a neural layer, or it is the layer which has the nerve endings which are sensitive to light. This inner neural layer, it is a layer of bipolar neurons and photoceptors, the cones and the rods. The cones and the rods are the cells sensitive to light, and then they transmit these sensations through the nerve towards the brain. Olfaction, the sense of smell. The sensory structure for the sense of smell is the nose, and there are chemoreceptors for the sense of smell. So these are the receptors which are sensitive to the molecules of odor. Now these receptors, they are also bipolar neurons, and they are surrounded by the supporting cells. This is the diagram of the human nose. So the air enters through the nasal cavity. The molecules of the order, they enter into our nose and come in contact with the nerve bundles. These nerve bundles, these nerve endings, they pierce through the cribriform plate of the ethmoid bone and connect themselves to the olfactory bulb, which continues as the olfactory nerve towards the brain. This diagram will give us a clear understanding about the sensation of smell. So, when we inhale air containing the odor molecules, it comes in contact with the mucus inside our nostrils. This mucus, it has the olfactory cilia which comes in contact with the odor molecules. Now this olfactory cilia, they're connected with the olfactory receptor cells which are sensitive to the odor. And these receptor cells, they are packed in between the supporting cells. Once this olfactory receptor cells, they receive the stimuli of the odor, it is transmitted towards the filaments of the nerve, which pierce the cribriform plate of the ethmoid bone and go towards the brain. They form the olfactory nerve and transmit the information towards the brain. So when these sensors, when these olfactory receptor cells come in contact with the odor molecules, they are stimulated and can transmit this stimuli towards the brain. Taste. The sensory structure for the taste is taste buds, which are situated on our tongue. These taste buds, they are chemoreceptors, mechanoreceptors, and thermoreceptors. It means that the taste buds or the taste cells, they're sensitive to chemical, they're sensitive to pressure, and they are also sensitive to temperature. The basic tastes which we can taste are sweet, sour, salty, and bitter taste. These taste buds, they are located on the rough elevated portion on our tongue, which are called as the papillae. There are four different types of papillae: elevated, rough portions on our tongue. They are the fungiform papillae, the circumvallate, the filiform, and the foliate. The cells in the taste bud, they are the taste cells themselves, which are bipolar neurons, and these taste cells are packed in between the supporting cells. In this diagram, we can see the location of the papillae over our tongue. So, at the back side of the tongue is the circumvallate papillae. Then, towards the sides of the tongue, it is the foliate papillae, and all throughout the surface of the tongue, it is the filiform and the fungiform papillae. In this diagram, we see the tongue map for various tastes. There are specific areas over the tongue where we can taste the specific taste. So, at the back side of the tongue, it is the bitter taste. Towards the tip and the sides of the tongue, it is the salty taste. Just behind the tip of the tongue, in the front, it is the sweet taste. And towards the back, on the sides, is the sour taste. So we can actually taste the food only in these particular areas for the particular taste of bitter, sour, sweet, and hearing and balance. The organ for hearing and balance are the ears. There are three parts of the ear: the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. The outer and the middle ear are responsible for hearing, and the inner ear is responsible for hearing and also the equilibrium or balance. The outer ear, it consists of the auricle, the external acoustic meatus, the tympanic membrane, and the ceruminous glands. The middle ear consists of the tympanic cavity, which has the malleus, the incus, and the staples. Also, the middle ear consists of the auditory tube or the pharyngotympanic tube, which helps to keep a equal pressure inside the middle ear and the environment. The inner ear consists of a bony labyrinth and a membranous labyrinth, in which the cochlea helps for hearing, the vestibule and the semicircular canals, they help in equilibrium. In this diagram, we can see the structure of the ear. The auricle or the pinna, it collects the sound waves and transmits them to the external acoustic meatus. These sound waves, they reach the tympanic membrane, and the tympanic membrane starts vibrating. These vibrations are transmitted to the middle ear. The bones of the middle ear, the three bones, start vibrating, and then these vibrations, they are transmitted to the internal ear. The internal ear is connected with the auditory nerves, which transmit the vibrations, the signals, towards the brain. Middle ear. So basically, the middle ear is the tympanic cavity, and the vibrations from the tympanic membrane, they are received by the three small bones, the malleus, incus, and staples. When these bones, they start vibrating, these vibrations, they are transmitted to a structure called as oval window, which is connected with the internal ear. So the auditory signal from the external acoustic meatus is converted into vibrations by the tympanic membrane, and these vibrations are transmitted to the internal ear through these three small bones. And another important structure in the middle ear is the pharyngotympanic tube, which helps in equalizing the pressure inside the middle ear and the environment. So in this diagram, we can see the structure of the middle ear, and specifically the connection of the three small bones with each other and the tympanic membrane. You can also see the pharyngotympanic tube, or which is also called as the auditory tube. Coming to the inner ear, it helps in the process of hearing, and at the same time, it helps in the process of equilibrium. The inner ear has the bony labyrinth, and it also has the membranous labyrinth. This membranous labyrinth, it has the cochlea, the organ of Corti, and it has the vestibule. The vestibule further has macula, which is sensitive to vertical or linear acceleration and helps in maintaining the equilibrium. The other part, the ampulla, is sensitive to the angular vibrations, angular accelerations, and rotations, which help in maintaining the equilibrium. So in the vestibule, it's the macula for the vertical acceleration and the ampulla for the angular acceleration. Both this help in the balancing mechanism and the equilibrium of the body. So in this diagram, you can see the membranous labyrinth of the internal ear, the structure of the semicircular canals, and the cochlea can be clearly seen here. Also, you can see the stapes, the small bone from the middle ear, which is connected at the oval window to the internal ear. Touch. The organ is the skin. So we have the sensation of touch through our skin. The layers of the skin cells are stratum corneum, stratum lucidum, stratum granulosum, stratum spinosum, stratum basale. These are the layers of the epidermis of the skin. And below the epidermis, it is the dermis and the hypodermis of the skin. So these are the names of the various layers of cells in our skin. Now the skin also has the hair follicle or the hair. It also has the sebaceous glands in the dermis which secrete an oily, greasy liquid which helps to keep our skin moist and little oily. It prevents the skin from becoming dry. At the same time, the dermis also has blood vessels, blood circulation. A few more further details of the skin structure. Apart from the sebaceous glands, there are also sweat glands in the skin. These sweat glands, they secrete the sweat which comes over the surface of the skin. With the body heat, with the utilization of the body heat, this sweat is evaporated and our body is cooled down. Also, with the capillaries in the skin, the blood vessels in the skin, by vasoconstriction or vasodilatation, the blood flowing under the skin surface can be increased or decreased, and it also helps in maintaining the body temperature. So in the skin, within the skin layer, we have the hair follicles, the sebaceous glands, and also the sweat glands. And it has a rich blood supply, blood circulation. Just below the epidermis, there is this sensory nerve ending for touch. So this sensor or this receptor is sensitive to touch, and this sensation is carried through the sensory nerve towards the brain. And we can differentiate between various types of touch. So the function of skin is the special sensation of touch, but at the same time, it is protection of our body. The skin protects the internal body parts. It also helps in maintaining the body temperature, and also it helps in absorbing certain substances like oils and creams. So, this is in short about the five special senses in our body, and in short, we discussed about how is their structure and functioning. So, this is all for the time being. Hari Om. Thank you.